Thanks to anyone who's starting to join. We'll just give it a minute or two for people to dial in, and then we'll kick things off. Yeah, thanks to anyone who's recently joined. We'll just give it maybe one more minute and then we'll kick off. We might just get started, and then I'm sure we'll do the intros anyway, and the session will be recorded for anyone who might join in a little bit late. So Pasha, do you want to start things off first of all?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Anna. Hi, everyone. It's lovely to meet you all. I'm Pasha. I'm an ecosystems manager here at SeedLegals, and we're delighted to partner with HubSpot for startups for this event, following the success of our webinar in January. And I believe we've got many more to come as well. So we at SeedLegals are a HubSpot for startups partner. So depending on your eligibility criteria, you might definitely be eligible for some discounts as well. And Anna's going to touch on that later too. And today's topic will focus on using tools to supercharge your fundraising, and a little bit more on SeedLegals in itself. We are a legal tech company, and we are the UK's largest startup provider, and we help founders with their end-to-end journey with their fundraising. So when it comes to cap table management, when it comes to term sheets, when it comes to shareholders agreements, founders agreements, we help founders with that kind of thing as well. And with HubSpot as well, it's an all-in-one SCRM system that can help you manage your fundraising process. So this is a brilliant complementary topic. I'm going to be around later for a Q&A session. So if you've got any questions, please do have a note of them. Either message them through the chat and we can go through them in order there as well. And even at the end too, I'm going to let you guys know what my email address is. So if you want to jump on a one-to-one with me, more than happy to do that too. And just as a heads up as well, this session will be recorded as well. So yeah, back to you, Anna, to start the session off too.
Great, thank you so much for that introduction. So as Pasha said, so this session is on maximizing CRM to supercharge your fundraising process. I think it's a really nice complementary topic with what SeedLegals do and what we do at HubSpot. So just to give a bit of an overview there. So first of all, it skipped ahead there. So for those of you who maybe didn't join the session in January or haven't met me before, I'm Anna. So I manage partnerships at HubSpot for startups covering the UK and Ireland. So really as part of that role, I partner with lots of VCs, accelerators, incubators, and also likes of SeedLegals who support startups to really offer both discounts on the HubSpot software and also education to really help them grow. Before HubSpot, I worked at Enterprise Ireland, which for those of you who don't know, supports startups and SMEs with both grants and equity. So I was on the startup side. So I was on that investor side before, really managing that fundraising process. So in terms of the agenda for today, I'll give a little bit for those of you who aren't familiar with HubSpot on HubSpot and HubSpot for startups. I'll go into finding investors and building investor lists, then going into 3 of the common mistakes startups can make during fundraising, which can include going into the investor sales process, metrics and communications. Then I'll jump into the HubSpot tool itself. You can see there probably up there, I have a few demo tabs open. So I'll be going into them as well in terms of tools to help you really connect with those investors. And then as Pasha mentioned, we'll finish off with a Q&A. So if you do have any questions, please do put them in the Q&A box and then we'll address them at the end of the session. So for those of you who don't know, what is HubSpot? So HubSpot is an all-in-one CRM platform that really aligns all your sales, marketing, and customer success teams to help you grow. So it really has, at the center of that, we do have our free CRM you can use. It has everything you'd need rather than getting started on Google Sheets to start up if you want to manage all your contact and company records. And then as you grow as a startup, you can kind of grow into our paid tools and get a nice discount on that through the SeedLegals software. So in terms of HubSpot tools, and I'll kind of be jumping into some of these later on. So as I mentioned, we do have that free CRM. We also have kind of 5 separate hubs that can really help you optimize each stage of your buyer's journey. So the buyer's journey is a journey that someone goes on from knowing nothing about your product or service, so being a stranger, to hopefully becoming a prospect, then converting to a customer. But in this case, we're talking more about investors. So I plopped investors in there instead, and then becoming a champion of your product or service. So the marketing hub, we have everything from managing your SEO, managing your website, either connecting like your WordPress account, or we also have our own CMS, everything to connecting your ads, managing your social media. In addition to that, everything for doing that outreach to prospects, or in this case, that outreach to investors. We also have that CRM system, marketing automation, really the list goes on. I won't go into too much detail because I'll bring it to life a bit with the demo shortly. So if you do want to learn more and apply for HubSpot for Startups, if you haven't already, you can apply with your SeedLegals unique partner link. Or if you don't have that yet, you can apply at hubspotforstartups.com and select SeedLegals as your partner. You can get 30%, if eligible, you can get 30% off HubSpot in year 1 and 15% off in year 2 and ongoing. That's on professional and enterprise level tiers only. And just a little sweetener, if you apply for HubSpot for Startups, the first 10 startups to apply for HubSpot for Startups after this session will get a £100 Amazon gift card. So we'll assess that after in terms of the applications that come in. So really to get into the meat of that, that's a little bit on HubSpot and HubSpot for Startups. So just to give a bit of context to everything, you know, the fundraising is a full-time job. When you're working on fundraising, it can feel like it's what you're doing kind of all day, every day. It can really take, especially when you're a lean team as a startup, maybe if this is your first fundraise or even later on, it can really take up a lot of time from senior members of your team. And of course, you're still building a company. It's not like, you know, it's not the only thing you can be focused on. You're still spending all that time on building your startup and lots of potentially late nights and things like that. So you might be thinking, you know, you're doing all this fundraising, you're putting in all these hours, but how do you really, especially if you're maybe, you know, raising your first round in that, how do you really get on the right track? And this is what I'm kind of here to help show you today in terms of how tools can really help you to track that fundraising process and really optimize your time and use your time to your best ability. So first of all, this might be rudimentary to a couple of you who've maybe raised a bunch of rounds, or I know we might have 1 or 2 VCs joining today as well, but really for startups in terms of what you're thinking of for sources of capital. And if you're especially maybe you're raising your first round and you don't know quite where to start. I've listed a couple of kind of local partners here as well. So there's, of course, there's great crowdfunding platforms out there. And just a disclaimer, first of all, this isn't one size fits all. I'll go into a second in terms of building investor lists. It really depends on your business, on your business model and what works for you. So there's no one size fits all for this. So there are, of course, crowdfunding platforms, the platforms that bring together, you know, different individuals for investments. A couple of great ones there are like Seeders, Crowdcube, also Spark Crowdfunding. They're an Irish crowdfunding platform. I'm Irish, I'm based in Dublin, so just flying the Irish flag there. And one's like Shadow Founder. Some great government funding programs that provide grants and or equity, like Enterprise Ireland and Innovate UK, and also, of course, Bootstrap or get funding in the early days, especially maybe from family and friends. Angel investors, so individuals who provide capital to startups, usually in exchange for convertible debt or ownership equity. VC firms, and this is the one I'll be focusing on more today in terms of fundraising being that sales process. And then venture debt and loans. This is more individuals, financial institutions who make funds available to someone with the expectations that will be repaid. So an example of one that I work with would be Transmit Startups. So before we go into that kind of that fundraising sales process, just to go into, first of all, the importance of building investor lists. So skipping ahead there. So if we're thinking about, I'll go into the individual steps later on. If we're thinking about the fundraising process as a sales and marketing process, this stage of finding good fit investors is really your sourcing stage. So similar to how in sales, you would, a sales rep, say in HubSpot, would block out time in their calendar for sourcing good fit leads. And they'd be, doing lots of online research, looking on LinkedIn, using different kind of data points to really target good fits within the kind of persona that, say, HubSpot will be looking to sell to. Similar to that, when you're building, say if it's whether it's your initial investor list for your first round of funding, or if it's, bridger rounds or later stages of funding, really it is that sourcing part is so important, and building that list and kind of qualifying early on. So similar to what I said before, like it's no one size fits all in terms of the kind of investor you go after, and it really depends on what you're looking for. So for example, when you're looking at say if it's a VC, what is their average investment size? So if you are a seed stage startup, but you see that they only invest in Series A plus from Crunchbase or another data resource, then it might not be the best fit. Or if they only invest in B2B startups, but you're B2C, similarly, it might be more difficult, or they might just not be investing in your kind of company. Funding stage, what's their engagement like with startups? So are you looking for, there are some VCs who are more hands-on operational kind of VCs, and then there's more that are hands-off. So what are you actually looking for in a VC partner? There's pros and cons to each. It just depends on what you want. Vertical, so I've talked to VCs who are both, a lot of times they can be sector agnostic, but will say invest more so in lots of different kind of tech companies, or there are some that are more sector specific. So if you are in a very specific vertical and you do want that kind of sector specific knowledge from a partner, then that would be something to look out for as well. Are they actively investing? So similar to you being a startup and going through a fundraising process, VCs are also fundraising. So do they have funds available, or did they announce a fund in 2020 and you haven't seen anything in the media since? Or have you seen that they've just launched a 100 million fund and they're investing in your exact kind of companies? Then that's a great time to reach out. This one can be more difficult, but are you comfortable with their historical proposed terms or valuation? Ask around. So this can be dependent on, of course, if you've built up a great startup network from, programs you've been on. I know in Ireland, it's a very small startup ecosystem. So if you can ask around, that can be a deal breaker for you. As I said, are they more a hands-on or hands-off investor, or what else can they do for you? So who can they introduce you to? How will they help you beyond capital deployment? Are there, do they have programs to support you? Do they have a great network where they might be able to introduce you to a VC for a further round? And can they help you get other investors? When you are building that kind of investor list, so as I said, we're kind of in the sourcing stage, building your short list of companies to go out for. There are paid investor lists, so more so like private organizations that aggregate investor data and sell access to those investor lists. So the pro of this is it can be really comprehensive, more often can be more up to date, and it's filterable on investment preferences in terms of, you could say with Crunchbase, like you can really slice and dice that data in terms of the kind of rounds they invest in, and PitchBook is great as well. There's also free investor lists, so lots of local ecosystem players are aggregating VC information for startups. You just need to know where to look. So a couple in Ireland, or Tech Ireland, or Start in Ireland. With SeedLegals, I know I had a look at the website. You do have a great investor directory. And then of course as well, just simply Googling, there could be easily articles on different tech websites like, TechCrunch or Silicon Republic, to just have, the list of top 10 VCs doing X, Y, and Z, or if they, and you can kind of help to compile your list in that way. If anyone in the chat, I love when people in webinars learn from each other. So if anyone in the chat has any other advice on resources that you've used for compiling these kind of investor lists, whether it be a database or a specific news outlet, then would be great if you could pop that in the chat for others to learn from. So 3 common mistakes that I can often see startups making during fundraising. So, keep skipping ahead. So one common mistake I can often see startups making is not thinking of the sales pipeline. The most important advice is not think of fundraising really as a sales and marketing process. So similar to a sales and marketing, so similar to a sales process where you would have these you'd map out your sales process. Again, that would be different depending on your industry and like your sales cycle stages and things like that. But similar to the way you would have, 6 to 8 or whatever it might be, different steps for a sales process, you also want to have individual steps for your investor sales pipeline. So high level, that would be, so first of all, that kind of sourcing stage. So sourcing those good fit investors early on and compiling that list, and then prioritizing that list. So you might have like an A list where you have 8 to 10 investors who are like your top kind of the top fits that you want to go after, maybe your B list, 8 to 10 in that, and then maybe a C, kind of a long list of 25 or so, and where you're prioritizing based on that and based on if they're within, if they're funding your type of company and those kind of things I went into previously. So really then similar to sales, where kind of the 3 key rules in sales are really qualify, 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 and qualify early on. That is similar to the investor sales process. So you want to make sure that you're moving forward, and even like I can see startups sometimes, spending time, especially from their senior team, going to that pitch meeting and spending time pitching VCs, and then maybe it's not a good fit, and they've wasted energy on that, and maybe were not followed up after, or it just wasn't a good fit to begin with. So really qualifying that investor early on can really help. Then going through the pitch meeting, due diligence stage, legal, which of course SeedLegals on this call can help with that kind of that legal stage. I know that a lot of things can get held up in that stage. Cash and bank, closed won and closed lost. It's important to have a closed lost when you're mapping out this process, because it's better to have a closed lost quickly than to have a really dragged out process. And also just be able to track that. So say if you were in the early stages of your fundraising, if you're raising your seed round, and maybe you had pitched a couple of investors and they were closed lost because they needed more information from you, or they didn't have any funds available at that time, it's important to still have that in your pipeline and to have their contact information in a database, like in your CRM, so that then later on you might be able to go back to them. And the timing might be right at that stage for you to pitch them for investment. So very similar, as I said, very similar to sales prospecting. The qualify stage is really important, and also important to know, are you talking to the right person? Like, is the authority there? So similar to in sales, if you're not talking to the key kind of buyer, then it will take longer to get to that person. You want to make sure you're talking to the right VC. So, and do they have authority? Do they have budget? So very much similar to that sales process. I will walk through the live kind of pipeline in a few minutes in a bit in the CRM, but just to bring that to life a bit, but just to give you kind of the principles behind that as well. So really some ways that you can use a CRM to keep track of your investor pipeline, similar to how you can use it to keep track of your sales pipeline. So you can use a CRM to keep all your investor information in one place. So you can segment investors by region or an investment criteria by creating lists. You can have outreach at scale. So if you're always sending the same, if you have your pitch deck prepared, and you're in your outreach, you're always sending kind of a similar email to like your target VCs, you can save that as a template, so you don't have to do all that copying and pasting for outreach. You can also create sequences, which I'll show you in the tool in a bit, to really automate that follow-up as well. So if someone hasn't replied in 5 days, you can get an email to automatically go out again. And then track next steps too. So if during that sales process, after the pitch meeting, they said, oh, that's great, follow up with me I'm going on holidays, follow up with me in 2 weeks, or will you send me that other piece of data I asked for in 2 days? You can set tasks for yourself on the CRM to remind yourself to follow up there. Pipeline management. So as I said, you're really managing your investor pipeline, tracking progress there on that pipeline for reporting back to investors, and visualizing through dashboards. So on the right here, I kind of have our funnel versus flywheel. So the flywheel model is really what HubSpot was built on. So we were established 16 years ago based on the inbound methodology. So rather than having this stagnant kind of funnel where customers very much, attract, engage, there's that sales and marketing funnel where customers are very much the output of that. In the flywheel model, we really put the customer at the center, helping all our customer service teams to grow. So in this case, the investor is really at the center of that process. So as I said, I'll go into this live in the tool, but this is really what the kind of investor pipeline would look like. You can map out different steps. Depending on kind of the investor targeting, as I said, this is more kind of a VC kind of focused view. And you can also automate in the back end to make sure you're getting reminders to follow up and stuff. But yeah, I'll go into that live in the tool soon. So I'll just take a sip of water. So in terms of investor metrics, again, this will differ depending on your business model. But often with revenue, like when I was on the investor side, say if it was more a SaaS company, investors would often be asking for MRR, or if you're more product based company, it might be GMV, or if if you're seeking your first round of investment and you don't have any paying customers yet, it might be more, what is the value of your pipeline? What are the value of your contracts? How many trial customers do you have? How many prospects do you have? And these might be higher volume or lower volume, again, depending on if you're a SaaS versus a different kind of business model. And then being able to track this in a CRM already. So being able to have, if you're tracking your pipeline already in a CRM, then you can easily create reports and dashboards, be able to feed this information back to investors. Again, these can differ depending on if you're a B2C company. I know for me, some of the stuff I might have asked for would be social media analytics things, like if it's an early stage company and maybe they don't have X amount of revenue or X amount of paying users, but they've been spending time building their social media profile, or they have other marketing metrics to show, like that's also things that you can track in the CRM. So again, I'll go into all these things kind of practically in the CRM tools afterwards. But lastly, I did kind of want to talk about communication with investors. So not only is the CRM important and is how important internal communication is, like in communicating with your own team, a CRM can help you do that. Equally, a CRM can help you with external communication, but that's not only with prospects and customers. That's also with communication with your investors. So not only your existing ones, because they've written checks, you want to be providing them updates, but also your communications with prospective investors. So really, this can help you with that outreach stage. So how do you get in front of them? How do you get into their inbox, whether it's LinkedIn or email, and then ultimately pitch that next meeting. And then once you pitch that meeting, once you're in that fundraising process, how do you keep in touch with them? So how do you make sure that you have, in that fundraising process I showed you, moving them throughout those steps, setting yourselves tasks to follow up in between and really keep in touch with them, so that either you're moving from one stage in the fundraising process to the next, or you're moving it to close lost if it's not a good fit for either party. And then how do you move them to action? So if they are in that kind of final stage of deciding, how are you going to kind of continue to follow them through the CRM process? So I'm going to go into the actual tools now, just to bring some of that to life. So first of all, here's what this is just kind of a dummy pipeline that we built out. I built out in my demo account. This is what a investor pipeline could look like. depending on, and if you could use this in other CRMs, but I will say no matter what CRM you decide to use, it's important to have a CRM where you can house everything, but it will be your one source of truth. So that if you are being asked to pull different to mention that as well. So this is what the potential investor pipeline could look like. So as you can see, I've kind of mapped out here, as I had before, pitch, meeting, demo. That is legal. For some reason, since yesterday, this has turned to Spanish, so maybe that was someone on my team. But essentially, this is what the pipeline would look like. Within the free version of our CRM, you get 2 pipelines. And then once you move, if you purchase our paid version, so say with the professional sales tool in HubSpot, you can get up to 25 pipelines. So essentially you could have, I just have a startup and investor pipeline here, but say in HubSpot, like our sales reps would have different pipelines for different pricing tiers. So you probably have, a couple of different sales pipelines, depending on, if you're a B2B business. And then you could also just create a separate pipeline purely for your investor pipeline. You can use those in lots of different ways. So as you can see here, if you had a bunch of pitch meetings, you could create the deal record, and I'll jump into the deal record in a bit, and then very easily kind of drag and drop to really help you to keep track of that process. And then you can also see, so say if you have a couple in the negotiation stage, you can also see the average value there at the end. So say if you're targeting 2 million of investment that you want to raise, then you can see kind of the aggregate amount there. And there's also a close lost over there as well, which you can use. This is more the investor pipeline. So this is more from a point of view, if you, of course, are a startup and you're moving through these pitch meetings. If there are, I think I saw a couple of VCs registered, so there are VCs on the call. Equally, you can use it from the other side. So if there's if you're getting like hundreds of decks per year, whatever amount it might be, depending on that volume, you can also use it from the other side to manage that startup pipeline. So it can be easy, it can be helpful on that side as well. And equally as a VC, you're doing fundraising yourself, so you can use those pipelines in that way as well. If I go into a deal record, so essentially HubSpot has different records for like a contact record, company record, deal record, and ticket record. So this is kind of the standard UI for what they look like. So I essentially just clicked into that deal record here. So say in this instance, it's Boston Venture Capital. This is a VC that you're pitching to. You can see the amount there. Hopefully, this is obviously outdated, but hoping maybe the close date is a few months from now, maybe longer if you're only in the DD stage, it really depends. You can see the investor pipeline there, deal owner. And then really, so you can do this from a contact or company record point of view as well. But if you want to get really granular on how exactly a deal went, you can see the activity kind of timeline here. Any notes to do with this. So maybe if you had a meeting, you could say meeting on X date, and then maybe you want to create a task to follow up, because you said I would send financial projections, and then that will automatically set you a task to follow up. Any emails will be logged here as well. So you can integrate it with Gmail and Outlook, so you're not going to be manually logging emails here. And then that will just come up there. Any calls you've had on Zoom, or you can integrate with Zoom or Google Calendar or whatever, would log up here as well. You can also create tasks directly from there. They don't have to be in the notes function. You can also create them directly there as well. So as you can see here, this deal record is automatically connected with the Boston Venture Capital Group. I don't make contacts because it's a dummy account, but any contacts to do with that company would automatically be mapped based on the URL. So if it's Tommy at Boston Venture Capital and so on, that would automatically come up here. What's really helpful as well for the deal pipeline is, or for the investor pipeline, is that you can automate the back end of that. So first of all, go into configure. So as I said, this is kind of, if you were creating any kind of pipeline in HubSpot, you would go into your settings, objects. As I said, deals is one of the key kind of default HubSpot objects, and you would just easily create that in here. So say if it's configure, so I've got here the deal stages, so pitch meeting, demo, legal, etc. Any kind of deal stages you can add in here, very quick. And then also, as you can see here, there's a deal property. So say if the probability of meeting is probably quite a high probability, this probability of meeting from pitch to demo is X, and then maybe negotiations to close one, if you've already got to that negotiation stage, then probability would probably be higher moving on. And then as well as that, you can update properties within HubSpot. I won't go into properties too much unless there's questions on that, but so essentially they would update in there, and you could filter based on those properties later on. The automation of pipelines is really helpful, not only for that investor kind of sales process, but also of course for any kind of sales pipelines you have. So you can essentially create little mini workflows within each stage. So say if to move from pitch meeting to demo, you create a task, set an internal task that you have to, before you can move them from pitch to demo, you have to send them one follow-up email, the day of the pitch meeting or the day after, or whatever your kind of preferred cadence is there. Or say if you want to move it from demo to legal, you have to fulfill like 5 different sets of activities. You can automate that in the back end. We'll see if this is, so as I said, you can create tasks, internal notifications, you can delay it, enroll another workflow. Like really I won't go into all of that, there's a lot there. But really being able to automate that to make sure, again, that you're keeping in touch with those investors, staying front of mind, especially like maybe they had a pitch meeting with you last week that you thought went really well, but they also had 10 other pitch meetings. So really reminding yourself to follow up, similar to a sales process, to make sure nothing falls through the cracks and you're really reaching out at those right times and keeping front of mind for them. Just to go into, as I said, for those kind of those metrics and what VCs or investors might often ask for, in order to be able to you can really track those metrics in HubSpot. So say you can see here, this is just kind of an example sales dashboard slide. But if you are spending the time on populating your CRM, you have your contacts in there, your company records, and you ultimately will be using those pipelines to move different deals, to close one or close lost, and so on. You'll be able to, there's default kind of dashboards and reports you can create, or you can create custom dashboards depending on your pricing tier, where essentially you'd be able to filter and see the deal forecast, what's in the funnel, deal revenue forecast by stages. Like these are just a few examples. So you can see kind of those different revenue metrics. Or if your VC is asking you, oh, what's the value of the pipeline as of last date, you can just filter by specific dates. It can also be helpful to see different like productivity. So this could be as maybe not as relevant if you're a lean, maybe 5-person team, but as you grow, you might be asked for your productivity by rep. So just can be a helpful number to say. So say a few different activity metrics in sales might be calls, meetings, tasks, because ultimately those activities will hopefully is what will kind of ultimately convert to revenue. So just a few kind of helpful kind of dashboards there in terms of what can be possible and what you can track within HubSpot. You can also, this is kind of a sales dashboard view. You can also track kind of marketing metrics as well if you are using the kind of the HubSpot Marketing Hub version. In terms of, say, I kind of showed you the deal pipeline and the deal record, this is a contact record. So say in this instance, if this is a fake VC, so say this is X person, his venture partner, whatever, and you've been having meetings with them, very similar to the deal pipeline, you can track the activity metrics there. any notes you might want to follow up on, any deals. So any deals, as I said, like before, like if it was that Boston Venture Group deal, that would automatically come up here. So really to be able to have these investors for future potential deals in your pipeline is really helpful. When I talked about kind of those investor lists earlier on, so one way of doing this is creating using kind of our contacts list feature, and then basically you can kind of filter based on different properties. So if they're tagged, you can create a custom property for, say, for VC, or filter them based on region. So if you want to see VCs that have viewed your content recently, and they're based in the UK, you can filter it kind of based on that within this contact records view. Or if, yeah, basically any kind of, you can slice and dice that data. I'm just trying to see, you can also use the list function. So I don't have one pre-built here, but essentially you can create an active or a static list. So the contacts view kind of filter is helpful if you want to create default views based on kind of specific properties. But if you want to do kind of just contact or company properties for records, then you can use the list function to create either an active or a static list. So a static list would be if you don't want the list to ever change, if you have your A list of VCs, and those are the ones you're going after. But usually this list isn't static, so I would recommend, like, you might be, they might be changing. You might take a VC out of that list, move to the B list, or you might not be going after someone anymore. So you can also use the active list in that. So that means that if you have predetermined kind of contact or company property data, then once a VC once a company enters that, they will automatically be added to the list. So an example of a way that I use this is I manage our HubSpot for Startups partners. So I have an active list of HubSpot for Startups partners that I own in the UK. So anytime I add a new partner, or maybe anytime someone moves out of my partner book, then that list will be automatically updated so that I don't have to do any manual updates. I am conscious of time, so I'll just go through a couple more tabs. When I talked about that communication earlier, in terms of communications with your VC. So as I said, this is important not just for outreach, so we're getting in touch with people and staying in touch with them throughout the fundraising process. It can also be helpful for if you have maybe a VC that invested last spring, or last year, whenever it was, and you want to be sending them regular updates in terms of how the company is doing. So the format of this can really differ from company to company, and the content that you want to keep in that. So it could be, if it's product updates, or if you've launched a new market, or you've added new team members, or maybe there was a particular thing that lots of VCs were asking about and you want to include in that update. Similarly, the cadence of this, you can also decide, like, do you want to send maybe monthly updates, bi-monthly, quarterly? You can test a few things out and see what the feedback is like. Some people want lots of emails. Some might want more condensed in a maybe like a bi-monthly or quarterly basis. So again, an example of this is kind of one that I built out for kind of monthly updates to my partners. So as I won't go into the details of it, I'll go into a dummy one. But it's helpful as well. So say if you've just started a VC, update newsletter for 5 companies who have funded, 5 VCs who have funded you, or whatever it might be, you can see the total enrollments. You might be enrolling multiple contacts from the same VC, what the open rate is like, the click rate, reply rate, and then if your aim with that is to get meetings, so say if it's not an update, say if it's more an outreach attempt, did you book any meetings from that? Did they unsubscribe? So probably less relevant for this. Hopefully we wouldn't get too many unsubscribes if they're your current investors, but can it be helpful to use that sequences tool? So the way, and this is kind of an example, this is more of a sales example where if someone came across the website and you want to automatically reach out there. So basically with sequences, you can send a series of automated emails to someone. So say if you are using it for that newsletter, you can say, You can send one email and use a pre-built template with kind of the content that you're including in that. And then maybe if they didn't reply, you might want to send another one a few days later, just being like, hey, just wanted to make sure that you got my email. If you have any questions, let me know, or let's jump on a call. Or if you're using this for outreach, you might want to do a few steps in the sequence to say maybe the first one is, hey, I noticed after our pitch meeting, you looked at my deck and you looked at this, and you might want to send that. So similar to the way kind of the workflows work, you can send, as I said, automated emails, and you can create kind of internal kind of tasks to remind yourself. You can delay it for a certain amount of days and so on. So it can be really helpful to really automate that outreach and also any kind of communications with your investors. One other thing, I think I just have one more thing to look at, is just the meetings tool. So as I said, keeping top of mind with those investors, or when you're doing that outreach, being able to book those meetings. So a lot of these meetings might have been done more in person, but now, of course, with COVID, the C word, we have a lot of these virtual kind of pitch meetings still as well. So you can create, similar to like a Calendly tool, you can create a meetings tool within HubSpot. Connect your calendar so you can automatically sync your availability, and then create something like I have here to show your kind of your calendar availability and really book those meetings. So just to jump back into the deck before. So as I said, if you do want to apply for HubSpot for Startups, if you apply with your unique partner link or HubSpot for Startups and select SeedLegals, as I said, the first 10 companies to apply for HubSpot for Startups after this will get a £100 Amazon gift card. So yeah, I think that is it if we have any questions.
Do we have any questions at all? I don't think there are.
I think any came through, but sometimes I know it's a lot of information, so I can. We also share my email. Perfect. Well, if there's no questions, will we close off, Pasha?
Yeah, let's do that. Well, it was lovely having you guys as an audience as well, and thank you so much, Anna, for the overview there. And yeah, if you've got any questions at all, do feel free to reach out to myself or Anna. I'm just going to put my email in the chat there, and of course you can reach out to me on LinkedIn and full name on LinkedIn, and we can get those conversations going, and I can walk you through the platform too.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining. We'll share the recording and slides afterwards.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Anna.
Bye.
Bye.